Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with BlackICE. Okay, what I think has happened here is something that I think is left over from Hearts of Iron 4 that I think has been corrected in Hearts of Iron 4. And that is if you will, a bug, whatnot, but BlackICE does it different, but I don't know, I haven't looked at either's code, and it may be something entirely different, is that where you're setting up the Vichy regime happens prior to France surrendering. Because you remember this in the last episode, it went in and said, France wants to negotiate a peace, blah, 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 and do you want to set up a, because that's, to a point, what it is obviously France was beaten. France could have continued to fight on. France was offered by Churchill a political union with Britain. I don't know what Churchill was thinking that was going to be like long term. That they were going to be, the new country of Britannia Gaul, or or France-Britain, Britain-France, or the Norman Empire, or whatever, where the political capital was going to be, whatever. But he was offering that as a way to keep France in the war. There was another very real stressed move to try to get France to move its capital to Algiers and continue the war from there, while still trying to fight rearguard actions in mainland France as falling back or whatever, and seeing what they can do, but really trying to keep it in the war, get the Navy, every ship, because when France surrenders, basically most of the ports are still in French hands. Italy had done nearly nothing in coming down here, so all the southern ports, all these, it's like all the ships, civil and military, load up all the naval supplies and equipment you can, and in 48 hours or whatever it would be. And though of course it would be zero, because I can tell you another story that was going on at this very time, and scramble out of France, air transport, get all fighters, bombers, whatever you can, get them out and do rearguard fighting actions to try to evacuate all French units of any type, whether they be armor or infantry or reservists or some sort of garrison units, and just try to get them out of France to North Africa, to Britain, to continue the fight, to help give Britain the manpower and the wherewithal to fight. Now, one thing I was going to tell you, another thing I thought of, like, scramble to get everything out. Well, really popular right now, I'm hopefully to see it within a few days, I haven't seen it yet, is Dunkirk. Okay, so Dunkirk, the British Army gets evacuated, but not only the British Army, there's a lot of French units there, or troops. Unit cohesion may have fallen apart by then for a lot of the French. Now the French are the main last holders of the pocket in Dunkirk, though the British were holding the pocket. Again, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how much it goes into this. The British early on were holding the pocket as much or more than the French were. Still had fighting capability, but the French sort of found their guts at the end and really tried to hold it until everyone practically that could be evacuated was evacuated. So a lot of French troops were evacuated, and they were brought to Dover or this part of England, and that part of England was just choked with British evacuees. So they very quickly were putting them on British trains. I think maybe Portsmouth, but I think Plymouth. I forget exactly where. Racing the trains across here. As you know, the trains have to stop to put in more coal, to even more often but it's a bit quicker and easier, is to put water in, because there are steam trains, so you need water in there. So, you know, and stopping at small stations, and described by one of the French soldiers, who I think a very junior officer or something, is that the trains were sort of assaulted by British trying to deliver sandwiches or cups of tea or other helpful things to the French soldiers that were passing through Britain, and they were just trying to scramble to get these troops through Britain. Got them to, I think it was Plymouth, but was one of the major sort of more west coast southern ports here, and got them onto ships, and, you know, just sort of an emergency rapid situation to get them there. And they were put on the ships, and they all through the night, the ships were moving, because it's a lot closer than it appears here, because it's more like this. They distinctly, and the devs talked about it, that they wanted to make the map so that you can have a central as well as an either side place and be able to click on it. That's why it's so much further apart. But all through the night, the ships got there to rush to get back to the fighting if they would. And it was Brest or Nantes, or I don't know what port. It doesn't matter what port, but it was a port, maybe even Cherbourg. But it was a port well away from German assaults at the time. And the ship shows up in the morning and then stops. You know, this is British, just a some sort of troop transport, passenger ship, whatever it was, stops. And so the British lower a boat and go into shore. Oh, the harbor master isn't awake yet, and he won't be on duty until 10 or something in the morning. This is like dawn. You'll have to wait for him to show up before we can allow the ship to get into the port to get permission to unload the French troops. And this one French, I think he was like a very junior officer, or whoever, the diarist that was writing this at the time, was just completely disgusted at this. He had seen what the British were doing to fight the war. He saw the British fight in Dunkirk, saw the British evacuate their troops from Dover, but also saw the British mobilize, and as rapidly, literally as humanly possible, to get the French soldiers. And these are not 100 soldiers. These are thousands of soldiers, because there were multiples of these ships that they were trying to get back to France. And it was, well, the harbor master wasn't awake yet and on duty, and so we can't do anything. So, and this permeates all of French society and its reaction to the war. This is at its fundamental core, is why France loses. Why France has I think, really undisputably the best army in the world at the time, in a sort of, if you will, an organization, number of divisions. Now, yes, they spread their tanks out into too many small units instead of concentrating them. Yes, their tanks were mostly one-man turrets. The Salma had a two-man turret, but mostly one-man turrets. And, you know, we can talk about some of the things that the Germans really did right, but it goes through, and this is in the French army as well. And I know I've talked, and sorry, I want to say, excuse me if I've talked about, because I know I've talked about this before, but I don't remember always when, because I'm played Hearts of Iron 3 series, Hearts of Iron 4 series, both right now at the same time, but in the past. And so I don't know always, I know a lot of the audience is the same audience, but I'm hoping and anticipating new people are here. So, you know, one of the requirements for the French army is all orders must be delivered in writing and have a person deliver it in person, or they are invalid. That's a regulation of the French army. So when the head of the French army gets on the phone and orders a unit to attack immediately, sure, sir, as soon as the orders get here, click, hang up. Especially if the guy doesn't want to do it. And they can just go, yep, we don't care, you're Marshal Foch or Gamelin or whoever. Well, you have no ability to give me orders, sir, over the telephone or the radio. I don't accept orders over the telephone or radio. Now, they were worried about, when they wrote the orders, somebody, most likely Germany, but somebody, this predates World War II, getting on the radio or getting on a telephone and giving false orders. That's sort of the rationale behind it. But it states that they must have written orders delivered. So it's this whole mentality that's in the army, and there's a lot of, there's the professional French army, then there's the mass of people that are the reservists that come to fill out the army, and that includes a mass of reserve officers as well, that don't have a professional attitude, don't have a coherent political viewpoint. There's a right, left, and center in France, and there's multiple rights. There's the monarchist right, and there's the neo, or not the sort of the fascist right. They weren't neo at the time, but the fascist right going on in France, and then you sort of have the, if you will, somewhat right, various religious types that aren't trying to either return a monarchy or be fascist, and then you have various centrist type parties, and then you have various leftist type parties, and there's this whole sort of chaos in French political society and culture. And that all is in the armed forces once you've mass mobilized the population for it. But this goes through every element: the trains running, the harbors running. These are emergency services that just don't function, and there is no, nobody did the right thing and walk up to that harbor master and shoot him in the head and say, okay, you're the next in charge. Are you showing up this morning and getting this? If you have a society that won't function while you have enemy tanks rolling over you, somebody needs to be shot. I'm not saying you shoot thousands of people, you shoot 2 or 3 to encourage the rest. And I mean that literally. If you have troops waiting to get ashore to go fight wars, and the harbor master won't show up early, and he's knows that the ship is there, or won't do it, that to me is treason, that you're not doing your job. Yes, there should be trials, but when you're in an emergency, you don't have the ability to do that. So that's obviously a little bit of my editorializing, but a very true story about, and again, I'm not sure if it was Brest or which, but it was a port way out here when the Germans were still over here. The other thing is and it's talking about forming up the French resistance. The French government has evacuated Paris. May have been at Bordeaux at the time. I don't know that they had formed up in Vichy yet, which is here. I think this is Vichy. But the French government's evacuated. They've shifted and I forget exactly who, because I think Pétain was in charge by this time, but they were shifting cabinet members. Pétain basically takes over or sets up or is put in charge as a dictatorship to sort of deal with the collapse of the French constitutional government, in essence. He doesn't stage a coup to create a dictatorship. He's sort of like, hey, we're in chaos and it's all failed in the Second Republic or whatever it was, the third, the fourth, I don't know. One of the republics, because sort of go on. Government and constitution and the government organization has collapsed, and we're going to put Pétain in as Marshal Pétain as president, and he sort of forms a new government. Legal within a French sort of way of doing things. Well, Churchill, I think if I get this right, Churchill was flying back and forth multiple times, flying out of London, flying around this way to meet with the French government, trying to keep them in the war. Well, basically they're not going to do it, and they're sort of shutting down because they're getting ready to negotiate with the Germans, and so they're shutting down what's going on. So, and they're sort of putting security around what's going on in this British airplane that has the ability to fly in and out. And I'm not sure whether Churchill was on it at the time or it was his plane that was being used to transfer some of his other negotiators there. And so while most all other flights had been stopped and everything else going with Britain, de Gaulle, and I think it's Churchill, but if I'm wrong, but I think it is Churchill. De Gaulle escorts Churchill to the plane to see him off, and he's, you know, told people that he's going to see Churchill off, that kind of thing. And just as they're right at the door, you know, the engine's on, they're going on, he's saying goodbye to Churchill. He leaps on board and they shut the door. It's pre-planned with Churchill, because de Gaulle isn't supposed to. He basically defects. He basically deserts the French army, because he has orders to do his job, and he goes, nope, I'm not doing my job, I'm deserting. Now, he isn't deserting to flee the fight from the enemy, he's deserting to keep fighting the enemy, so you can call it, you know, and it's not cowardice, obviously, but he deserts his post. There's no other way to say that. He deserts his post and jumps on board this airplane that basically the French won't shoot down or won't shoot at, and takes off sort of the last time and gets out of France. And that's how de Gaulle gets out to start really setting up a free French movement. So that's sort of the story of what was happening. Now, I think because the Vichy French formation event has happened before the sort of process of French surrender has happened, is why we're in this mess. France has gotten control of most of this. Now, this is still better than the generic French. What else happened? Because if we look at this, sorry, I'm taking a long time anyway, but they're currently at peace, which sort of takes out this part of North Africa from play, and these guys, I don't know if they're at peace or not. We were at war with them. Yeah, they're still at war with us. So this will be interesting to see. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, we can keep fighting here. Just wanted to explain what I think was going on. I did a bunch of, if you will, placing of orders while in between episodes.
Ausrücken! Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken!
This is the good division, send them down here.
Bereit zum Ausrücken!
You get across the river.
Angetreten! Angetreten!
You go back into
Angetreten! Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken! Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken!
Come on, squeeze it on two sides. You can get across the river.
Bereit! Bereit! Achtung! Ausrücken!
Go there to cut them off.
Achtung! Ausrücken! Angetreten! Achtung! Ausrücken! Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken!
Come on, join the attack again.
Achtung! Ausrücken! Angetreten!
Gotta keep the pressure up.
Bereit! Ausrücken!
We're good.
Bereit.
Bucket.
Befehle! Angetreten! Bereit! Zuhören! Ausrücken!
Moderation of
Ausrücken!
fastest.
Ausrücken! Angetreten! Befehle! Achtung! Befehle! Achtung! Bereit zum Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken! Zuhören! Ausrücken! Achtung! Angetreten! Ausrücken! Ausrücken!
Okay.
Befehle!
You punch down.
Ihre Befehle!
You punch down.
Zuhören! Bereit!
Objective.
Ihre Befehle! Bereit zum Ausrücken! Bereit! Angetreten! Achtung! Zuhören! Befehle!
There. You guys all.
Ausrücken! Befehle!
Okay, because we're taking French aircraft factories, light aircraft factories, Panzer factories, we are jumping ahead, shipyards, small arms factories, French merchant fleet captured. Oh, that's useful. Okay, we have 1427. $15.77. Okay, that's good. French equipment. Go to OB file, add custom fuel tip. Okay, yeah.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Bereit. Angetreten. Ihre Befehle. Zuhören. Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Well, maybe they were smart. They did Dunkirk.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Okay, large bomber factories, which will help all those other factories be more efficient and more effective. Yard output, yard output. Start with that.
Zuhören.
Okay,
Alright.
you guys come down here.
Achtung.
Mostly just using the motorized troops because
Ausrücken.
I think to some degree we have it handled.
Bereit.
Speed is the issue. Well, we might as well move.
Achtung.
Just in case we run into some big...
Befehle. Zuhören.
All of you guys attack. All of you guys attack.
Ihre Befehle. Ihre Befehle. Angetreten.
Good.
Befehle.
Go over there to attack across the river.
Ihre Befehle.
Hold that.
Angetreten.
Well, it's out there.
Ihre Befehle.
Some of the, I do know some of the stuff that was, shall we say, fairly easy to do, like remove units from the map, aren't quite as easy to program in events with Hearts of Iron 4.
Ausrücken. Ihre Befehle.
Get that across that river, nice and in.
Zuhören.
So you,
Zuhören.
so will you.
Bereit. Ihre Befehle. Ausrücken. Befehle. Ausrücken. Achtung. Bereit zum Ausrücken. Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ihre Befehle.
Assassination of Leon Trotsky. Don't be a traitorous. Communist or
Angetreten.
Putin. Oh, sorry, Stalin will get you. Putin just goes after traitors. He's not a communist, I don't think.
Ihre Befehle. Achtung. Ausrücken. Angetreten. Achtung.
Cut them off
Ihre
there.
Befehle. Ausrücken.
You go there, you attack.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Das Reich will attack
Ausrücken!
Vichy, you attack. Here.
Angetreten. Befehle. Ihre Befehle. Achtung! Bereit zum Ausrücken. Zuhören. Zuhören. Angetreten.
You just punched deep.
Ihre Befehle.
We can't enter there because it's
Bereit.
Vichy territory.
Bereit. Bereit.
So I guess we're going to inherit a lot of France. So it looks like.
Ihre Befehle. Ausrücken.
Some march up there. Reinforcements.
Ausrücken.
Probably they do, but I don't know. Oh good, Condors. I love the Condors. They're a moderately good plane. They were designed as a long-range passenger transport. Let's see, which one was it? Maybe several of them, like supposedly the Donier DO-17. Some of these other planes that have fairly little internal capacity, but were very fast, were tried to sold to the public, generally speaking, not sold as in anybody bought them, but sold as why they're being designed, was for a fast mail plane. And so, you know, you don't have to slim it all down and have very little space to transport mail, which letters put enough in and postcards dense enough. They get sort of heavy, but they're nowhere as heavy and dense as bombs. So, you know, you have a small, heavy, dense plane that you want to go fast, and you're mostly worried about something that, you know, you carry bombs, and it's the weight of the bomb, whether you have one or a lot. It's so you can have a small thing where if you're just trying to go a fast mail plane, you want some sort of volume. Like the HE-111, that might have been an okay mail plane, but no one really bought. I don't think that this was just going to be a mail plane. I've seen some propaganda footage of it trying to be a mail plane, you know, doing it. So I'm sure they gave some to the Reich Post or whatever it was, and they did fly some mail around with a few of them, but I don't think anybody bought that. Now, so sometimes they made stuff and they tried to make it out that it was a civilian thing. The Focke-Wulf 200 Condor is sort of the name of it, or the Model 200, was really designed as a long-range passenger transport aircraft, and it was capable of doing transatlantic flights. You'll see in Third Reich events where they sort of initiate some of those stuff, and particularly flying from like Berlin or Germany to New York. As you know, remember, Lindbergh, he was the first to solo across the Atlantic Ocean. But earlier people had, like, in two people in an aircraft, so that, you know, if you get tired or whatever, you can take over and help with the navigation. And trust me, people out there, there used to not be GPS. Navigation wasn't that easy. But the earlier transatlantic flights were like from Newfoundland to like Ireland. Okay, so, you know, yeah, they got across the Atlantic in one hop, but they weren't necessarily, you know, and at the time that Lindbergh flies across, nobody's doing routine commercial flights. I'm saying that because there may be somebody doing some sort of you know, charter commercial, but I don't even think that's going on in any shape. But there's no, you know, there's no American Airlines or British Airways or anything doing, you know, scheduled transatlantic flights at the time that, at least I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, that Lindbergh flies solo across the Atlantic. It's still a somewhat experimental. Obviously, they already knew that you could do it, but you could build a big enough aircraft that carries enough fuel to do it. It was just sort of a, you know, working out the details of the technical capabilities. So they, you know, they knew it was going to happen. But Lindbergh takes off from outside of New York City and flies to Paris airport, okay? And so he gets all the way to Paris. And so that's further. Now, the Condor is capable, and Berlin is further east than Paris, obviously. I know most of you know this. Flies to New York. So it's quite capable of doing that as a one-way. Can't go there and come back. So it can't, it isn't an America bomber. Can't go and bomb and come back. So it's designed to do that. So what's the problem with aircraft in getting it over there? Is weight. So it's designed very light, as a very lightweight aircraft, and which is good for what it's doing. But there's a design flaw, and I don't know if it's just a design flaw or just generally a design flaw, in that it is a fragile aircraft. They do lose some in combat, but I don't know whether they lost more in combat or lost more on landing, because they would come back in and break their back or some other major cracks in the aircraft. I think often with the pilots and everybody surviving, but just make the aircraft enough of a write-off structurally that you can strip the engines out and you can strip a lot of the useful bits and pieces out. But the aircraft was done for it because it was just so tuned to be lightweight that they were adding, because you had the internal volume, they were adding more fuel to it, they were adding bombs to it, or depth charges or other sorts of things, but bombs were the most common, to go out as a naval bomber. So it didn't quite have the DC-3/DC-4 Douglas transport design features that does basically achieve all of that. Depends on the model, might not have quite the range, but that it's much stronger framed aircraft. So it's a fragile aircraft, but for it being fragile, which is, like I'm saying, a detriment in a military aircraft, it's otherwise a very good long-range bomber. So we're going to put those into focus. But well, of course, we need to see about what else we're going to research here. Well, we do want to research some of those, but let's start getting some better packs. Some of the other stuff. Okay, and see. We have this. This is what I did. We're going to keep this one in production here because it's fully worked up, so we're producing, and we've got a lot of places like in the Mediterranean where and once, you know, we're able to base right out of here. I do have these guys here. See, out in the western approaches, they're red, so they're able to operate, but they're very ineffective. But in the Bay of Biscay, range-wise at least, you can look at the stats for how well they attack. Shipping, of course, and how well they spot things, that's another issue. But range-wise, they work just fine in the Bay of Biscay, work just fine in the English Channel, work just fine out here in the North Sea, especially once we get some of these other areas. So as you sort of can tell, it's still not an aircraft to discontinue production because it is going to be cheaper to produce. And I'm going to, as you can tell, not try to rule the waves by sending my fleets out to sink the Allied fleets. I'm going to try to avoid major naval combat of fleet versus fleet. And if I'm going to have that happen, either by accident or because I do have to clear like a path to get to invade Norway or something, I want to have massive amounts of land-based air to support any action. But in lieu, when they don't have naval assets, I want to do land-based air. I recommend that highly for Germany, and it's something that you can switch over and switch around a lot. Well, let's come up here and take a look at this. Okay, well, let's see. We have air experience, so we have quite a lot, but you know, I'm just gonna leave this as standard here, and we're gonna convert over to this line, which sets it back, not quite to start, but nearly, and we will expand the production even more. Let's try to get these guys out here. I know we are in desperate need of rubber, and we are also in need of tungsten. So that's what we're going to do with that. Now we are a few more. Factories. And what is not a favorite thing for me to do is I definitely want to build more things. That is not a consideration, but it's what do I try to build for the future that right now doesn't require rubber, because it's just going to be more and more inefficient production, and of course adding more of any of this other stuff. Let's see if we can get some tungsten from where is Sweden on this list? Why am I not? We're not doing any trade with Sweden? I'm sorry, I'm just... They've got tungsten here in Lapland. I'm just, because just wondering, because it should be here. British Raj, United Kingdom. Oh, well maybe, well. Huh. I'm just wondering why I don't see... in Norway. We've got Norway there. Oh, Sweden's way down here for some. Why is it way down there? Why is it only... $24. Maybe it's some sort of modifier and effect. I don't know. Now, not exactly sure what BlackICE is doing, because it says 97 there, it says 32 up there, so there may be some sort of effect. I do know for a fact I'm not going to say too much, but I do know for a fact Hearts of Iron 4 massively overplays the level of tungsten in Sweden. The reason for this is because of the they do have tungsten up there. They do have wolfram in there, but they massively overplay it because there was also the Swedish steel that was, well, Swedish iron ore that was turned into steel that was a really good combined metals alloy. It was a natural sort of steel alloy that had, I think, some tungsten and some other mineral properties in it that was really high quality steel. Germany, well, once Germany really got rolling and producing, it needed more steel. But Germany had lots of steel. Steel wasn't the critical thing that they wanted to move out through Narvik. They could send it out in summer and springtime, I gather, or late springtime, but only like 6 months of the year or something, out through Sweden. But there was enough snow and can't keep the rail lines open or whatever enough during the winter that they had to during the winter, and enough the other 6 months or whatever of the year, because obviously we're super far north. And it may have been more. They could ship it out through Narvik all year round. So that was the critical element for they could ship it out through Narvik. So this really high quality steel that Germany needed for so many things, that part of the and this is, I know this from talks with the devs. I won't go too much beyond that because I don't know how much is public, and I probably shouldn't even say this. But I don't think this is, because I think they have said this in public. So is that they know there wasn't nearly this level of tungsten, but the high quality steel can be used for machine tools itself. You got to understand, one of the sort of critical things is when you machine metal, you normally use metal to machine metal. And so even if you're taking a wrought iron bit, and because it's fairly soft, but taking that and using it to grind, or whether you're spinning it or you're whatever, against something like copper or bronze, it's real easy to do, and it'll work. Obviously, the harder the steel, the better. But even then, even if you go harder steel, you're still, and it says tools get dull or whatever, you're still wearing away a little bit of the metal. Well, if to work on, to bore out a artillery piece, which needs very hardened steel, to bore out a rifle barrel or pistol barrel, you need, which is a hardened steel, often a chromoly steel, which is now that's chrome added into the steel. Because steel is just iron that's heated up, added carbon to it at a very high degree, and then let cool. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's basically what steel is. It's carbon and iron added together. But to get other sorts of steel alloys, like chromoly steel, at least it'll take, I don't know that it's harder, but it'll take hotter temperatures than regular steel, and I think tungsten steel. But I think tungsten steel is harder. So you're gonna wear away the cutting surface, the tool, as well as the thing that you're cutting. So you go through a lot of bits, and there's only so much recycling you can do, and this whole process. So machine tools are a critical element to the German war production, and they're having to machine often. You can machine aluminum. Aluminum's very easy to, it's still going to wear away. Which dulls, as you know, but it's not nearly as quick. When you're machining an aluminum bit for something on, a widget that goes on an aircraft, that's much easier. But when you're machining an anti-tank gun breech that you don't want to deform when it gets hot and it's going to take lots of pressure. You need, you know, something that maybe you're having that breech made out of chromoly steel, where the gun shield and the other things are just regular sorts of steel. But so Germany needs this. So you need these really good machine tools. Now tungsten is sort of the best. Chrome, I don't think you can make machine tools out of just chrome or mostly chrome. I think it's too brittle. Again, you add it to things, it does differently. So what they've done is, and so I don't know if any of the BlackICE developers are watching this, so this should be massively higher than 24. I don't know what all the effects are going with all of that, but is that this steel that Sweden provided could be used for machine tool, you know, the machining bits as well, and could be used for all these other things. That it's sort of, and I know that BlackICE sort of reworks everything and reworks the costs. You know, how much steel does it take to make something? How much tungsten does it take to make something? But there isn't a lot of tungsten in an anti-tank rifle. I'll tell you that right now. There may be a steel tungsten alloy, but a lot of the tungsten is, well, they briefly use some tungsten penetrators, but that's really mostly rare, and that's mostly for the Gerlich guns, if you know about those. But because I noticed the higher anti-tank, the PaK 38 will require tungsten, where the PaK 36 doesn't. And that can come down to is use for alloys. There's my PaK 36 here, but also for the needed for the cutting tool. So it's sort of balanced out in Hearts of Iron 4. That, you know, here it is, PaK 35, 36. I normally just call it the 36 because the model difference between the two is minor and technical and not really affects its performance. But PaK, you know, so it just needs the steel to sort of go up to the next one. You'll need some tungsten added into the mix here. Well, that's really sort of what should be, it can be used or replaced with the Swedish tungsten. So that's sort of the designer's philosophy here. Now that we have more shared coastal regions, I think it is suitable that we that just works for me. Yeah. We want that. Now, nope, nobody here. Let's just go back to worldwide. Where's, oh, I'll just undo that. So, and while we're at it, we'll return lots of infrastructure. Got 2 synthetic oil and 2 synthetic rubber. And I want another synthetic rubber. Just move it to the top, that'll be fastest. Just reading yesterday that it was in 1937 that Japan first made its first sort of effective batch of synthetic oil gas from coal, so that they were starting on dealing with their lack of oil slash gasoline problem that would later affect them, of course, greatly in the war. In 1937, just sort of an interesting aside. I know they had been, but or I knew for some time that they had been working on it, but I hadn't really known that it was that early and that was the date.
Ausrücken! Ihre Befehle? Angetreten!
These guys are reinforcement.
Ausrücken!
So I definitely know some of you are, and I hope most of you are interested enough in historical commentaries. And I label them just as commentaries. Again, I know many of you know that, but because I don't have all the facts right
Bereit zum
on my
Ausrücken.
fingertips, and so I know I'm getting details wrong. These aren't scripted things. When I'm making a mod, when I'm writing down
Ihre Befehle? Ihre Befehle.
I'm very careful about the history, but when it's talking while playing games, it's a different matter.
Angetreten. Ausrücken. Befehle.
Okay, we're going to take this opportunity to end this episode. I want to thank you so much for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. And of course, please post comments, suggestions, ideas. Love hearing from you. And also, of course, please tell a friend about this channel. I really hope to grow it. Thanks so much.